Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the That Luxe Life podcast. Today I'm actually here to flip the script a little bit and do a episode on a topic I haven't talked about much before. And though the That Luxe Life podcast talk about everything about living your luxurious lifestyle, which includes fashion, beauty, motherhood, travel, all that in between, and relationships and home, I haven't really talked much about home aspects. And I actually want to get into that, especially because if you haven't heard, if you haven't been following me on Instagram or following along on my blog, my husband and I, with our son, we are building a custom home. It is a huge thing for us. We have been saving up for it for years. We originally, when we first started thinking about moving out of our townhome, is we decided to go, okay, you know what, let's look for a development or maybe a new build in a development, or maybe just buy a home that, is less than 5 years old. And as we were kind of doing the searches, visiting new construction developments, as well as, looking at different homes, we kind of just got into this aspect of we didn't want to go into already built homes and do a lot of renovations. That's just not something I was interested in. I didn't want to be like a never ending project. And when we were going to the developments, there were just, houses and the structures, they had too many, contingencies. The HOA was either being weird or like there was a lot of customization you can do. So we decided to just go the more detailed and rigorous route of building a custom home, which includes buying land, finding a builder, picking out every single detail, and then building a home. So we are currently in that process. And, I'm going to be coming back. I'm going to be sharing it on my blog. So if you are not connected with me on my blog at Living Lush, follow along there. And then I'll also be sharing the journey along on my Instagram at Living Lush, as well as on my home focus Instagram channel that I just, started. So follow along on there. It is simply Lush Living. Well, that'll have more in-depth insight onto what's going on with the build as we are moving further and further. But I want to start off by just saying, that this is a process that if you're looking into it, make sure that you're going into it with this aspect of, I'm going to be in it. I want to make all these decisions. I know it's not going to be on my timeline, that there are different factors. Like I give everyone this aspect of, they're like, we're thinking about creating, or, building a custom home. What's your experience with it? And I'm like, we're not even halfway through. We're like still kind of at the beginning, even though we've been doing this for a while, and I'll explain more of that in a minute. But it takes patience. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of time. And in some cases, depending on where you live, it can be more, it can be less costly, I guess, say that way, more, cost saving than going into a development where there's an HOA and there are just, prices that you have fixed. But it is also something where you go in with a certain price and then things start adding up. So it may also be more costly later on. It's kind of one of those things where, at least when you do a construction build on a development, they kind of have these fixed prices and they stay within those prices. There's not much deviation because there's not extra elements that pop up. Whereas with a custom home, something happens on your land or it costs a little extra money, you got to pay the difference. You go into your mortgage and it's a fixed price, and then if it goes out of the mortgage or it's out of the boundaries, there's things you have to pay. If they have to hire a specialist to come in and do things, you're paying that invoice. So it can add up. But on this episode, I want to talk to you all about, one aspect of buying land as well as, the permit process. And I'm going to be sharing, these aspects of how it went about in our state, in our township. And it can be something that's very similar with other states, other townships, other areas. But of course, there's going to be deviations. Every township, every state has different rules, regulations, and depending on if you're going with a builder or you're doing the building yourself, it can change. Everything can change. Everything has different variables. But I want to share our experience as well as the tips, and just so you can kind of hear what we're going through, especially if you're thinking about doing your own custom home and how that can work. So again, we decided to do the custom home build because I was very specific into the things that I wanted in the house. My husband's just like, this is going to be the house that you want, that you're building. He's like, I, of course, am going to live there. It's going to be our home. I want a little bit of say, but he's like, you know what? I want to make you happy. Love him for it. So, we went the custom home route. We decided to save up. And I will say, being completely transparent, we are building looking at it, our loan amount is over half a million. It's 500 and something thousand is our loan amount. Well, not our loan amount. Our loan amount's around 400 something, so a little under half a mil, but the house total value is over half a million. And even with the extra prices on, we're looking closer to $600,000. So we actually took out a loan for around 450, and we actually put down a down payment of around 140,000, and that was just upon saving. I've been saving up for the house since probably we graduated college. We got into our apartment, and we kind of lived very below our means. We were able to save, and I will completely say, before everyone's thinking like, oh, you must have had your parents helping you, you had family that put in money, you must come from a rich family, come from a middle-class family, who have worked, I graduated from college with a teaching degree. I started my career as a teacher and as an influencer. So I've worked very hard. I had to pay, I didn't pay for tuition in college. I actually got an academic scholarship because I worked my butt off in high school. And then for graduate school, I actually didn't have to pay tuition then either, because I ended up getting a graduate assistantship and worked while I was also working for the school to help, offset any fees and things that I needed. So the one main thing that I paid for when I was in college was basically room and board. So I did end up having loans. I still have loans that I'm paying off. But I don't want to go too far into my saving aspects. I want to go into this buying the land and all of those details. So as you begin the process of looking for land, one thing you really have to take into account is where you want your land to be. So what I would recommend for people is, before you start searching for land, one, if you are not doing the construction part of it yourself and you're planning on hiring a builder, find your builder first. Why do I say this? Is because, one, your builder can help you find land based off of what you're looking for. So I even say, before you find your builder, consider the house that you want, what the size is, how many bedrooms, the details, how you want it to sit. Think about the district. If you're, building it and you have children, what district you want to be, what area, how far away from your job you want to be. Consider all of those elements that you would whenever you're looking for a home. Which you should, especially if you are someone who is probably selling your home, or been buying a home and you have a realtor. You probably have gone over, considered all of these aspects, and began doing that thinking process. So have all that information with you, where you're going to go, and also consider the price point you want to be in. A lot of builders, when you go talk to them, will have certain houses and blueprints and bases within certain price plans, but then we'll also be able to explain to you, how much to consider and factor in for land work, as well as how much to consider and factor in for upgrades. And then sometimes most likely able to give you like estimates on what upgrades cost and, what those prices are going to look like. So you can kind of say, you know what, I have a whole budget of this amount. Is this an avenue I can even explore as you're finding a builder? Then once you find your builder, the person that you want to go with, go in with them, talk to them, pick out a plan, especially because you'll need to determine the dimensions of the house that you want, because you don't want to go and find a piece of land and it doesn't fit how you want your house to sit. It won't give you a backyard. Like, it won't give you the things that you want. So having a builder beforehand not only helps you when searching for land, it helps you with, budgeting for aspects, and they'll be there and available for you for when you start your land search. So the reason why you want them for your land search is that whenever you are searching for land, you're searching on these programs, Realtor, Zillow, or if your realtor has, certain things like the MLS system comes up, that's what they're usually called. They will, go through all of those aspects on the listing. But then when you're like, I want to go out and look at the land, your builder can coordinate with you, and depending on who your builder is. So ours did, where our builder came and walked the lot with us. basically on this lot walk, which is literally just standing in the middle of the land. It's not anything where you're like doing anything special. There's no equipment that's brought. Like there's nothing happening because obviously you can't do anything on the land because the land's not yours. But what happens is they walk the lot with you and look for certain things. They'll look at the amount of trees on the lot. They'll look at, okay, well, this is the house you want. This is how the possibilities it could sit. They'll look to see, they'll do research into if there is a public sewer line and where it sits. Because even though on the system, it'll share, public sewer or gas lines, they'll be able to look deeper into where it sits because they'll give you an estimate of, well, it's down there. You're going to pay a little extra to bring it up here. This amount of trees. There's this, land thing over here. Here's what the stormwater may look like. You'll need stormwater. You won't need stormwater. There's a bunch of things that go into land work that you don't even realize until you talk to a builder, including, like I said, stormwater, trees. If there's a conservation ordinance about the township, we'll get into it with permits. The tap-ins for where the lines sit for, gas, if you're doing natural gas for any of your appliances. So you're going to think about that of, are you doing all electric? Where is the public sewer or, that line? Are you going with public sewer? Are you going to do a well? Where can they put in the well? There are all these aspects and it comes into those final price. So they'll start being able to do some research with you. They'll look at the lot, they'll walk it with you, say whether this is a lot that'll fit your house. And then they'll go home, do some back end and be able to mock up some pricing on what the lot work will be. So getting that pricing what the lot work will be, we'll say, okay, well, the land costs 80 grand, what's for us? Well, the lot costs 80 grand, but the lot work costs 75 grand. So though you think you're budgeting $80,000 for land, you now are budgeting close to 150 for land, 150, 160 for land. Now it's just, doubled basically in the price that you're just now paying for the land versus the land work. Now that does go into your construction cost, but remember that, maybe your base plan for your house may be $200,000. Now you're paying $80,000 for the land, and another $75,000 for land work. So now you're already up there with it's limiting the amount for your upgrades. So if you're looking for a land with a lot of or a house with a lot of upgrades, or you want to expand things, you have to consider all those aspects and depending on what your base model is. Because considering, if you want a finished basement, that's an upgrade. Some builders don't include paint packages. Paint packages for us cost like $11,000. So we decided, oh, you can paint it for yourself, but now you have to go buy the paint. You have to do all the legwork, which can be a lot of work versus just hiring somebody else to do it. Getting certain, driveways extended, getting certain lights, all of those things, those different aspects are upgrades. So it kind of limits you what you can and can't do if your lot price or your land price starts becoming a lot more. So going along with the land, say you finally got to the point and you've purchased land like we did. We found a piece of land for $80,000. Lot work, like I just kind of said in the example, was $75,000. It was fitting within our pricing structure. We kind of had built everything out, and we said, okay, now let's go into the next steps of purchasing the land, and then before we can build, we have to get permits. Most builders will help you with the permit process, but the one thing you have to really know about permits is it's tedious. It can take a while, and you have to know things about the township. So when the permits are basically, for those who don't know, are basically these papers that you need permission to build on that land. And what the builders have to do in order to even file permits is they have to do a blueprint of your land structure, where your house is going to sit on the land, what trees are going to be cut down, where certain rocks are going to be dug up, where they're going to put in the tap in, where they're going to put in pipes. Like they have to literally show exactly where everything on that lot is going to be. Include, like I said, the pipes, where the backyard's going to be, how far away it is going to be from the road, if we're going to put in where the mailbox is going to be, where the driveway is going to connect, because you actually need a driveway permit. Like there are permits for a lot of things. And depending on your township, you may have an ordinance. So for example, for our township, there was a conservation ordinance that basically said trees that had a certain height that were not dead had to be kept, or you had to replant them. So our builders had to actually have an engineer who went and had to look at all of the trees to see, here's the ones that definitely need to be cut down because this is where the house is going to sit. This is the trees that the owners, us, want cut down so we don't have anything blocking, and here's the ones we're going to keep. And then you have to get all that factored in, and you have to lay that out. You have to lay out how the stormwater is going to work, how the landfill is going to work. They have to detail where they're going to put the dirt that they're digging up. Because obviously when they're building a house, dirt is coming out. Where are you going to put the dirt? Where is it going to move? How are you going to put the grass back? They have to detail every single thing. And then once they've detailed that in their plans, in these write-ups with their engineer, they send it to the township, send it to their engineer, who has to review it with their board. There's so much review, and our time was 3 weeks because there were certain ordinances we had to meet with. There were certain conservations that we actually ended up surpassing and staying within. But you have to go through all that, and then if there's one thing wrong, they have to revise it and resubmit it. Like, there are so many things. You have to do drip lines, I learned about. So drip lines are basically how the water falls off of any trees that are going to be left there, which basically adds water back into the land. Like, it's so many things. So when you're going through this permit process, be aware that there are fees for permits, and builders usually will just do all the work for the permits. But typically permits are not in your loan price. They are an extra fee because they're unknown fees. So you may have to pay the permit application fee and then pay for the permit. So we had to pay for the permit application fee. We had to pay for an escrow. So basically any work where they had to outsource it, because typically townships don't have their own engineers. They don't have people who need to actually review these things. So they have to put an escrow account for anything work that needs to be done, to go look at things, to review things, to pay these contractors. And then once, the permits are going through. So if you're doing public sewer, you have to pay a tap-in fee. Our tap-in fee, which actually was shared with us by our realtor, was a cheaper tap-in fee. Basically, you're tapping into the public sewer and public water. For water, for us to get access to the public water, we had to pay $11,000. To get access to the sewer, which is a completely different thing, to tap into that was another $7,000. So now just for water and sewer, we had to pay close to $20,000. And then the escrows and the fees, each of them, because there were about 4 to 5 permits, ranged from around $200 to $1,200. And then when the permits were done, the permits now cost based off of your, size of your lot and what's going to be done. They have to do the square footage afterwards. Can range from anywhere from like $1,000 to $2,000 to $5,000 depending on your lot. So now you're paying. So at the end of the day, your permits tap in. Now that's an extra amount of money that's separate from the loan you took out, that's separate from the land work, that's separate from the land you just bought. You now have factored in probably another $20,000 to $30,000. So building a custom home can add up. So be aware of that. When you're going into permits, check into ordinances. You may have found a perfect piece of land, but maybe you didn't find, like, that township is just too difficult and you're not going to be able to build the house you want in that land. So make sure you're checking it. It's a major, major tip. So again, if you're looking for more information on building land, following on with our journey, make sure to follow me on Living Lush. On my Instagram, following on my blog, I'll be sharing that. Check back in for more episodes on the podcast about this. I'll be sharing that. I'll also be sharing videos behind the scenes of what we're doing, processes, picking things out on my YouTube channel for mini vlogs and shorts. And then I'll also be sharing it on my Instagram, Simply Lush Living. And of course, after the house is built, I'll be doing like home decor stuff, room reveals, everything on there about home, right on that profile. So make sure to follow along there. And of course, as you're listening, make sure to leave a review on the That Luxe Life podcast. It helps me to bring in more and more guests. The better I do, the greater I can bring you. Next thing you know, I have Charlize Theron on here, who is coming to talk about her experience of just being amazing. But it's up to you all. The ratings you all give me, the reviews you all give me help me rank, which help me bring on more amazing guests. So make sure to subscribe, follow along, leave me a review, and stay tuned for more episodes of That Luxe Life, where I am dropping them every Thursday morning on topics such as fashion, beauty, home, relationships, motherhood, travel, all that in between about living your luxe life. So again, subscribe, leave a review, stay tuned. And if you are like, I want more, go back and listen to another episode, and I will catch you next time.